Union representatives met at the Newcastle Trades Hall headquarters this afternoon to begin planning strategy. Power workers are angry the state government aims to break a pre-election commitment not to privatise the industry.
In some respects, some of the guys feel as though they've been betrayed by their own government.
The impact of privatisation will be felt chiefly in the Hunter Valley and on the Central Coast, home to 80% of the state's generating capacity. If the sell-off is approved, unions are threatening a statewide industrial campaign.
We think that the unions on a statewide basis are already primed up to do that.
Trades Hall will take its resolution to a meeting of power industry unions in Sydney tomorrow. To sell his plan, Treasurer Michael Egan is promising to spend billions of dollars on infrastructure. Many of the Treasurer's sweeteners focus on the Hunter Valley and Central Coast, among them air conditioning for all schools, flood mitigation works, an early start to stage 3 of the Wyong Hospital, and the biggest, a world-class aquatic centre in the Hunter Valley, equal to Homebush. Business has given the plan a cautious reception.
Certainly if the Treasurer Egan can guarantee us on the future employment opportunities for those disadvantaged and help business to improve its opportunities and to expand business, then sure, we'll accept all of the handouts that he offers.
However, members of Labor's left faction are far less enthusiastic.
Well, I call it the Treasurer's fantasy outcome. It's a grab bag of promises for the whole of New South Wales.
It makes for a fiery session when the Labor caucus meets tomorrow, the first time since the privatisation plan was announced. Phil Hind, NBN News.
Do you furniture and equipment in the hospitals? So what's the process? If you...
Well, we blow them anywhere we like. But if we get trauma patients, you know, somebody that's really badly hurt.
A week after being appointed by the board to run the club, the administrators today met with members to deliver a simple message.
You need to come and you need to spend a lot of money in this building in the near future. Otherwise, I mean, that's really what you need to do.
The club owes $11 million. The single biggest creditor, the Commonwealth Bank, is owed $8.5 million, the legacy of a massive expansion. The bank has the power to close the club, however the administrators believe that won't be necessary.
We've been in constant contact with the bank and are meeting with them again next week. At this stage, the bank are quite comfortable with the position as it stands.
$600,000 is also owed to about 100 small unsecured creditors, mainly suppliers. The administrators will put a package to them in 3 weeks' time. If the club is to survive long term, however, it's going to mean a significant restructuring of operations.
I think there's considerable scope to make changes where necessary, whether it be provision of additional services or changes to existing services so that the membership comes in and enjoys their club.
For the time being, though, the administrators say it's business as usual. Phil Hind, NBN News.
Energy Australia says the solar power plant will generate 200 kilowatts for 3,000 of its pure energy customers. The corporation expects to be producing environmentally friendly energy within the next couple of years. Singleton Council has already given in-principle approval. And a chance for Newcastle residents to cut their power bills by more than $200 and save the environment at the same time. The state government's Sustainable Energy Development Authority says it'll give householders $20 towards a more energy-efficient showerhead. The program aims to reduce energy use and in turn cut greenhouse gas emissions in the city by 4,000 tonnes within 5 years. People have to apply for the rebate by the end of the month. Richard O'Leary, NBN News. "47-year-old Philip White was on his way home from work when he was ambushed and viciously attacked.
It appears that he has some head injuries and may have died as a result of those head injuries.
The man's body was discovered by his wife this morning, just a couple of hundred metres from their home, and a stone's throw from Metford Public School. It's believed he caught a train from Newcastle last night and was expected to arrive at Metford near Maitland by 6:30. Police divers searched for clues, but a motive hasn't been established, although the man's wallet was found in a nearby creek.
Obviously, robbery is one of the things that we will look at as being a motive, but we still need to find out whether or not that actually was the reason.
The attack confirms the fears of many locals who say violence and vandalism have become part of everyday life.
My kids are at that school today and every other person's kids that live around here scared.
Really dangerous, you know. I wouldn't let my wife go through there ever again.
Mr. White was last seen wearing blue trousers and top. He was carrying a blue sports bag. Tonight his family is being comforted by relatives and friends. Richard O'Leary, NBN News.
Two cleaners were set upon by two men wielding sawn-off shotguns and a knife as they attempted to enter the Bilo supermarket shortly after 4 this morning. The masked men then bound the cleaners' hands with tape and waited inside until the manager arrived. But another 5 employees turned up for work in the meantime, the bandits holding them hostage as well. After an hour and a half, the manager finally arrived, only to be forced at gunpoint to open the safe with the keys. As the bandits left through the rear loading dock with a large amount of cash, a delivery van was pulling in. The 38-year-old driver was stabbed in the right thigh by one of the men. Meanwhile, the Big T Roadhouse south of Swansea on the Pacific Highway was also held up overnight. A man believed to be in his late 20s, wearing a striped hooded jumper, demanded money from the attendant. He escaped with a moderate amount of cash and a bag of cigarettes. Simone Cobb, NBN News.
The body of 47-year-old Philip White was discovered by his wife near Medford Railway Station early yesterday morning. Police say Mr White had been ambushed and viciously attacked while walking home from the station. Overnight, detectives arrested and charged a 15-year-old boy with murder. The boy was escorted under heavy police guard into Maitland Courthouse.
The
The 15-year-old boy sat arm in arm with his parents during the brief 10-minute appearance, at one point breaking down and sobbing loudly. The court heard the boy had just moved to Maitland from Mount Druitt to begin a TAFE course with his cousin. He's also facing a second charge of assaulting a police officer this morning, while the second youth, aged 17, has been charged with concealing a serious offence. An application for bail lodged by the Aboriginal Legal Service was rejected. The boy will reappear in Warramai Children's Court next Wednesday. Blake Doyle, NBN News.
There is an atmosphere of celebration here at Newcastle Civic Park tonight. Hundreds of people from all walks of life have turned out in a show of unity, goodwill and defiance against Pauline Hanson and racism.
With the eyes of the nation turned towards Newcastle tonight, the cultural stomp was staged as a peaceful protest to the Radical MP's visit. Both the Mayor Greg Hees and Bishop Michael Malone lent their support to the concert. From Koori dancers to Jamaican and Irish bands, the concert featured a global mix of music and performers, the chilly night doing little to keep the crowds indoors.
Fantastic, because it gives us an opportunity to be here peacefully together and just have a nice time.
Oh, I think it's the best way of protesting against Pauline Hanson.
If you walk around and count up the number of nations that are represented here, just one individual from a different country, that shows how diverse Australia is.
Simone Cobb, NBN News.
With a controversial politician, thousands of rowdy protesters and hordes of police. The ingredients were all present last night for what could have been a volatile mix. But as the screams reached fever pitch, the demonstrators managed to stay peaceful, the strong police presence credited with the crowd control. But for some, the jeers were uncalled for.
Some of the name calling of the protesters towards the patrons that were attending was a bit disgusting.
However, Mr Archer, the event organiser, felt a little heat when he had to be shielded by police to reach his car. Only 2 people were arrested and 1 charged with assaulting a policeman.
We came away with no one injured, there was no damage to property, and just with those 2 arrests, so we consider it a great success.
There was little mopping up today, the barricades already replaced with greenery. The Lord Mayor Greg Hees congratulated the demonstrators for their spirited but orderly protests.
Newcastle should become a benchmark to the rest of Australia on how these sorts of sensitive rallies are to be managed and conducted.
Motorcycle accident, paramedics on scene. Yep, paramedics on scene. AJ to West Back 1. Thanks, Torres Strait for the Seahampton area. ETA 1946, 1946. You're going to a motorbike rider with a compound fractured leg. Paramedic unit 804 is on scene. Paramedic 804, West Back 1. Over here, just keep coming that direction. See you. Roger, have that visual, thank you. AJ Newcastle, West Pack 1 on scene. Yeah, you're well clear left. At this stage, car's well clear. Advise losing time, we've got 100 to run. Got a small sapling at our 7 o'clock, I'll move you forward 3, forward 3. Clear that tree. 2, 1 and hold. We're right at the head of Jopper, he's got a bit of dust there, he's right underneath the aircraft, just wait till he moves away. Still clear the tail. Nearest obstructions today, tree at 9 o'clock, 25 metres. Pretty tight there. Still clear the tail. Nearest obstructions today, tree at 9 o'clock, 25 metres. Just watching this stuff over here doesn't take off, Dubbo, it's a bit loose. I got a visual. Still clear on my side, still clear. I wouldn't mind moving it left a little bit. Hold. Roger. Now you clear down. Foot off the ground. Mate, this debris is starting to take off, it's all blowing away but not coming towards us. On the ground, it's clear my side. Roger, clearing it out.
Last night was the regular Medford Neighbourhood Watch meeting. The turnout, though, was anything but regular. The murder last week of 47-year-old father of 3, Philip White, near the Medford railway station prompted the response and a minute's silence. There was also praise for police. But as attention turned to the area's crime problem, the atmosphere heated up. Despite fears crime in the area is on the rise, the meeting was told it had actually fallen in recent months. Residents were assured regular police patrols would be maintained, particularly around the Medford railway station, but that resources weren't limitless. Among the solutions put forward at the meeting, a curfew on young people, private security firms and residents' patrols. Meanwhile, the 15-year-old youth charged with the murder of Philip White is due to reappear in court next month. Phil Hind, NBN News.
It was one of the more pleasant tasks for State Education Minister John Aquilina, seeing where the money from last year's budget has been spent on Newcastle TAFE. First stop, TAFE's boat building shop, where students from across the state are learning the finer points of marine design.
In 1995 there were 14 students, in 1996 this increased to 28, in 1997 we now have 50 students doing boat building at Newcastle TAFE. This really is becoming a centre of excellence for boat building around Australia.
The foundations have also been laid in the TAFE's building department, with new facilities for bricklaying students. This year will see more than $6 million poured into the 60-year-old David Edgeworth building. The building, which once housed Newcastle University, will be revamped inside and out before the end of next year.
The laboratories are very old, the technology is also outdated. We're bringing that up to first-class standards so that it's not only a fitting laboratory, a fitting building for the 20th century, but well into the 21st century.
$1 million will also be spent on improvements to other campuses across the Hunter. Blake Doyle, NBN News.
The Holden and Ford teams spend millions every year trying to beat each other. The old saying that the car that wins on Sunday sells on Monday. Now Alan Jones has signed his approval of a very special Falcon aimed to steal sales from the Holden Special Vehicles Commodores. Developed by a former mechanic of Jones, the Falcon is supercharged, giving a 50% increase in power, and comes with suspension and brakes that reflect racetrack development. But the autograph of the former world champion doesn't come cheaply. It adds about $20,000 to the price tag. Still, there are customers out there.
There's so many people that are Ford lovers, and they have been since the first GT Falcon came out. So those people have probably come out of the woodwork again. Once a Ford man, always a Ford man, I think.
The plan is for modification of all Alan Jones Falcons sold in New South Wales to be carried out by Gary Scott at his Mayfield tuning business. And if sales go as expected, that means additional jobs for the area. An unexpected prize from the racetrack. Jim Sullivan, NBN News.
Andrew Johns succumbed to his ankle injury on Saturday, a blow for him but not the Newcastle Knights. Johns has been named on the bench for the clash against the Bears. He'll be given until late in the week to prove his fitness.
He is optimistic about playing, but once again he will have to pass a fitness test, and it may be that we might wait sort of Thursday, Friday before that happens.
The State of Origin has done its usual trick to Newcastle by hampering the side's preparation. The Knights lost a fortnight ago to St George, but have managed to keep the enthusiasm in the team, largely due to some alternative training.
We went to paintball last weekend, and everyone thoroughly enjoyed themselves, including myself.
Really concedes the side got as many bumps and bruises paintballing as it did against the Dragons. It was perhaps good training too for the fight against Norths.
They've got an array of top-class players, and they love to move the ball about. They're going to be up there in the top 3 or 4 at the end of the season, and we've got to make sure we're up there with them.
In round 2, Newcastle led 12-0 before Matthew Johns was given his marching orders. The Bears went on to win comfortably. Malcolm really expects a reversal of that result.
I think we've the best part of the season to come.
Jonathan Upton, NBN News.
There are many arts festivals and musical acts in Australia. This is what some are calling the antidote. Abroad with Two Men is a contemporary satirical, fast-paced review put together by a well-tried trio. Jonathan Biggins, Philip Scott and Linda Nagel take a light-hearted look at popular shows and their stars.
It's always a pleasure to come back here, and I think if anyone needs a laugh at the moment, it's Novocastrians.
The show opens at the Civic Theatre tonight. Meanwhile, Newcastle's Starstruck organisers have put together a show of a different kind. Combining photos, videos and other memorabilia, the exhibition celebrates 200 years of entertainment in the Steel City. Starstruck 97 premieres tomorrow night. Vanessa Spark, NBN News.
After 3 months of fighting, it looked like the steel may have gone out of their stand. But despite a shortfall in the number of voices, the message was as loud as ever. The 1,000-strong crowd was joined by a wall of Labor leaders. The Prime Minister sent a stand-in, an assistant to the Industry Minister. The federal government will spend $10 million to retrain the 2,500 workers who'll lose their jobs and encourage new industry in Newcastle. The state government has committed the same amount, but it says the steelworks can be saved. Workers voted unanimously to oppose BHP's decision before marching on the administration building at the steelworks. Tight security ensured a standoff before a delegation of workers was allowed to meet with Newcastle Steelworks boss Bob Kirkby. He says the decision will stay the same.
It's irresponsible for people to be saying things that might give people false hope.
Today's rally is part of a rolling campaign to keep the steelworks in Newcastle. But the big question is, can the momentum be maintained for another 2 years? Richard O'Leary, NBN News.
The Calgary Stampede usually conjures up images of bucking bulls and cowboys, but this group of Singleton High School students are about to experience a lighter side of the famous event. The Marching Blues have been eagerly practicing for more than 12 months for the biggest tour of their lives. The band of 53 musicians is about to embark on an 11-day trip to America and Canada on the 27th of June.
Very excited, counting the days.
First up, a concert at Disneyland before playing in Banff for Canada's National Day.
I believe we're the first Australian band to ever be included in that at Banff, so that's quite an honour.
They will then march on the Calgary Stampede to compete in a contest against bands from around the world.
Something that they'll maybe never do again, but a wonderful experience to mix with other children, to mix with other bands, to see what other bands can do, to experience the music and to experience the country.
Simone Cobb, NBN News.